Complete IT webinar, Understanding the Current Cyber Threat Landscape. And before we begin the webinar, I just want to go through a couple of housekeeping items. First, there is a Q&A section within this webinar portal, and you will have the ability to ask questions throughout the course of the webinar. And then afterwards, I have allowed for plenty of time for Q&A at the end. So I will address all of the questions that have come in. Also, a recording of this and a copy of the slide deck will be made available. And if you wish to receive that, just let us know and we'll be sure to get that out to you. And with that, I'd like to begin the discussion today. I am Eric Torres, Director of Channel Development for North America. I am one of the evangelists for my company, Datto Inc. And Datto is a tool that Complete IT uses to make sure that their customers and their networks are secure and stable, that if and when something bad does happen, that we do have the ability to restore data and keep networks alive and functioning in the event of any form of disaster. I have been with Datto for 5 years now, and prior to that, I spent another 10 years in the industry and learning about what's keeping people up at night when it comes to all of these cyber threats and data security and making sure that data is accessible if and when something bad does happen, which is what we will be talking about today. So when you look at the threats today and the sense of backup, what people normally think a backup solution is for are the what if scenarios. And previously, in years past, it was typically some form of disaster, be it natural or man-made. But when people normally think about backup, they're thinking about the options of fires or floods in your part of the world. But the fact of the matter is, the likelihood of these things happening is fairly slim. I can tell you from my own experience, I have only heard of one of our customers' networks that has actually gone down due to an actual disaster like this. And the actual disaster was, I had one of my engineers, he accidentally knocked off the sprinkler head in the server room and flooded the server room. And I had to go back to my customers saying, hey, we made a mistake, we flooded the server room, but we are backing up that data and we can restore it. The fact is, times have changed and these are less likely to happen. However, human error is much more likely to happen. Humans, us as users on the network, people, we are the ones that accidentally delete things or introduce things to the network that shouldn't be there by clicking on the wrong links or downloading the wrong software or visiting places on the internet that we shouldn't be visiting that, unbeknownst to us, could be filled with threats and malware embedded in that. And we hear of this through all kinds of methods of introducing this malware to a network. The number one method is a phishing, the act of phishing. And that's where the bad guys entice somebody to click on a link or reveal information that they wouldn't normally reveal. So people are your greatest risk. And that's what we need to prepare for. It's the people that introduce these bad things to networks. And this is what we need to think of when we think of business continuity, backing up data, and staying connected to our network in times like this. So today, I have a couple examples from across the globe of people introducing these things to networks and how this malware gets brought into the network and dispersed within that. And this first example is exactly this. A person making a mistake. And I'm going to highlight a couple of mistakes about the story, but this gentleman here, is the IT director, the communications director for the Hawaiian Islands in the US. And if anybody happened to hear this story from a little while back, Months ago, the Hawaiian Islands in the United States had an emergency signal that went out to every radio wave, every television, every cell phone. And the signal was saying, take cover, there is a missile heading towards the islands. And you can just expect pure pandemonium of people getting this signal and hearing it on the radio waves, seeing it on television, getting it on their cell phones, saying a missile is heading towards you, take cover. Now, this was a mistake, and it was a keystroke that was made that alerted everything. And I'm not highlighting the mistake that this person made in accidentally doing this. That's not the point of this story. But immediately when I hear stories like this, I start researching and I start digging into it, thinking, okay, how did this happen? How did this message go out to the Hawaiian Islands, and who made the mistake? So I found the gentleman that made the mistake and looked into the profile of this gentleman. And here he is right here. This is his actual LinkedIn profile picture. And he is in charge of the communication systems for all of the islands. And here he is. He's proud, and he's sitting on his desk, and he's saying, yes, I'm in charge of this. I'm in IT, I'm in communications, and I'm the one that is responsible for alerting people and making sure that people are safe. And that the mistake that he made isn't necessarily the mistake of alerting everybody, but if you zoom in on his monitor, he has his password taped to his monitor. And it actually says, and I know it's a little hard to read in this picture here, but it says password warning point 2. So these are the things that we need to prepare for. This gentleman knows better. He knows not to put his password taped to his monitor, but for the ease of use, people do things like this. And I walk into businesses all the time, and I talk to business owners, and I talk to end users, and you all, and I don't know how many times I've walked into an office, and one of the first things I do is I look at people's desk and see if they do have their password taped to their monitor. Or what I often do is I flip over people's keyboards. I find passwords that are actually taped to the bottom of their keyboard, and it's hidden just because it's under the keyboard. But human nature, we do things like this. We write down passwords and we keep them in a spot that it's easily accessible. And conversely, we have passwords that are stored in our browsers and make things easier and faster for us. These are the ways that bad things happen to a network. So in looking at all of this, let's look at where some of this originates from. Let's look at the anatomy of the internet and where it is today. So today, we as users of the internet, we're on top. We're using the surface web. These are the Googles of the world, and Facebook and Reddit, and where we consume our information. And this is what normal people think is what the web is. But the fact of the matter is 96% of the content that is on the web can be inserted into two different categories: the deep web and the dark web. The deep web is all of our databases, medical records, financial records, legal documents, your documents that live in a trusted, secure environment that your users are accessing through secure methods to go about their business, that you are taking care of your customers through these databases and stored data within the web. The dark web, that's where all the bad guys live. That's where you have the malware and trading of things, political protest. You can even purchase drugs and guns on the dark web fairly easily and anonymously. This is, as I mentioned, consists of 96% of the traffic. So just think about that when you're thinking about all the things that we do on the web, and then all of the things that the bad guys are doing. And if you visit this dark web, it is truly dark, the things that you can find in there. And that's when we start talking about the cyber threats and the evolution of these cyber threats, where they're coming from, and cyber threats by the numbers. So us at Datto, we're looking at this saying, okay, well, where are these threats all coming from and how prevalent are these threats? So in looking at this, cyber attacks that are aimed at small to medium-sized enterprises, 43% of all the attacks that we're seeing, that's exactly who they're focused on. The thought used to be that these bad guys and these criminal organizations, they're targeting the much larger size enterprises. And that's where they're going to get the most bang for their buck. But over the past few years, things have shifted. And now they're focusing on the small to medium-sized businesses because they can cast a much wider net. And they can ask for ransom demands and do it at a much larger scale to businesses of all sizes. 85% of all of the harmful activity are launched through email, through attachments. Oftentimes the bad malware is embedded in things such as a PDF, where end users, you guys don't necessarily know what's all inside of it. So the way to combat that is only open up attachments from trusted sources. And if you're unsure, actually call that person. Say, hey, did you send that email to me? There's an attachment and I wasn't quite sure if I should be opening it, because of that 85% being so prevalent. 91% of these attacks are in the form of phishing attack. As I mentioned, phishing is where they get a user, get their victim to give up information, to click on an embedded link without even knowing. And there are methods that they use, and they've gotten so good at these phishing attacks and getting information out of people to help launch their malware. Cybercrime will cost $6 trillion, and that's US dollars, by 2021. That's what the global reports that we're all reading, they break it down into US dollars. But cybercrime will cost $6 trillion by next year. That is an incredibly staggering number when you think about it. And there is plenty of opportunity for these criminal organizations because the money is real. And they are making a ton of money in doing this. 24,000 new malicious apps are removed from the App Store daily. That's just iOS apps. That's just your iPhone apps. So when you think about that, think about all the Android users out there as well. So this number is just staggering. There are so many malware applications that are now being introduced to our mobile devices. And if you think about it, what we used to do on our computers, we are now doing from the palm of our hands. These bad guys know that. So they are targeting every form, every aspect that they can to launch their malware. And we know that ransomware is up. We're still calculating the numbers from 2019, but just in 2018, 180% ransomware is up across the globe. So these guys are not slowing down. And to be completely blunt, you can have the best security systems in place, but the bad guys are finding ways around it. And that's what we're going to discuss today is business continuity, saying if by chance these bad organizations have infiltrated your network and gotten past all the security that you have in place, we need to have a plan B. We need to have a backup solution. And it's so prevalent that businesses are hit with ransomware in every 13 seconds. That is how prevalent and how much these bad guys are infecting the networks. So let's look at this. Where are these threats coming out? Who are the threats? There are hacking collectives, and these are your ethical hackers, and I have them included here. They're not so much a threat, but they are accessing data, but for the sake of helping protect that data as well. These are your white hat hackers. They're the ones that are finding these loopholes, finding these back doors into networks, and then letting the people know, saying, hey, here's how somebody could potentially steal and access your data. The Internet of Things, IoT hackers. These are becoming more and more prevalent, and I would envision over the coming months and then over the next year, we will have a lot more information on that, and I do have some examples of this as well. But these are devices that are connected to a network, much like our phones and our computers are. These are also ways that hackers are getting access to your critical business data. Ransomware, we're all over the news. We can't pick up a story without hearing about ransomware and the amount of damages. And when I say damages, this takes it into effect of forensic investigation and downtime. And there's a calculator that we have that will help estimate downtime for your specific business. We also have nation states, countries that don't seem to like the USA or the UK that much, that are attacking organizations and stealing and procuring data. There are examples out there of organizations within China that are actually paid a bounty to steal data from the US and from the UK. And if you can register this, and the government is actually paying a bounty depending on the amount of information, the amount of data, and what kind of data is being stolen. These are people's jobs. Their job is to attack and steal data, and that's what we're seeing out there. And of course, organized crime, they all want their piece. All of the gangs and the mobs, they don't want to let all of those trillions of dollars go to waste. So they want their cut of that pie as well, and they are getting more and more involved in releasing this bad code and utilizing ransomware and malware. We also have insider threats. $21 billion is lost in insider threats every year, and there's examples of this as well, where it's somebody on the inside that is potentially leaving back doors open intentionally, or selling their data. There's cases of this where we have data that is sold by an insider person who is maybe they're a disgruntled worker, or they catch wind that they're about to lose their job. First things people start doing is deleting data and covering themselves. We also have, and forgive the name on this, I'm not the one that named it, but it's called script kiddies. And what this is, they have made, the bad guys have made the access to this data and the use of the data so user-friendly, where anybody can now launch these attacks. So you don't necessarily even know how to write code or know how to launch these attacks yourself. You can go and ask for help. You can purchase this code from somebody else and disperse that code. And this is what we're seeing out there. They're making this so user-friendly, so to say, that just about anybody can do this. We also have the hacktivists that are out there, and those are the ones that have the political agenda. And we hear about this as well, done through social engineering and social websites and social media, where they are putting out false advertising and false knowledge, and they have a political goal out there to change the political atmosphere that we all live in. We also have the malware developers, and this is a little bit different than the ransomware developers, because there's the malware is just a general terms of all the different things that are out there, from key logging and helping the script kiddies that are out there. Starting as low as 40 pounds, or $40 US, you can own a copy of any of the popular malware that's out there. This is what I'm talking about when you look at the dark web. There are tons of options out there to purchase this for a little amount of money. And then the mobile malware that is out there, as I mentioned before, this is where I think the curve is going to skyrocket. This is what concerns a lot of us security experts the most, because we're doing so much. And if you think about it, what I do today is completely different from even what I did a year ago or 2 years ago from my mobile device. I'm doing just about all of my banking, all of my paying of bills, everything you can think of, credit cards, that's all done from my mobile device just for ease of use. And that needs to be protected just like business data. We know that ransomware is king. Ransomware, the UK ransomware alone has jumped 195% in 2019. That is a staggering number, and the reason of that is because of the dollar figure. These bad guys know that they can truly make a lot of money doing this for relatively little to no work. And when I say little to no work, I have some examples of how they're doing this and how truly outside of the box these bad people are thinking. So here are some examples that I have for you. This first version of ransomware is by far my favorite, and it's kind of morbid to think about. Yes, I do have favorite versions of ransomware because of what they do and because of how far outside of the box these bad people are thinking. So this first one tests our morality, and it's called popcorn time. This particular strain of ransomware is pure evil genius, as you can read in this headline. And what this is it turns the victims into criminals themselves. And what I mean by that is, if you get this particular strain of ransomware, you are posed with a question, a choice. You can pay the ransom and you can get your data back. Or if you disperse this ransomware and if you send it to two of your so-called friends and they pay the ransom, you'll get your data back for free. Now think about that. These bad guys, they wrote this code and the code worked, and it worked wonderfully. And then somebody had the idea and said, you know what? Why are we still being the bad guy? Why don't we let them do our dirty work for us? And people were doing this. They were posed with that morality question. They were saying, yes, I'll send this out. I don't want to pay you. I'll send it out and hope that two people fall for this, and then I'll get my data back for free. Essentially, they were turning the victims into the criminals themselves. And they were sending this out. And I don't know about you guys. I had at least two people I would love to infect with ransomware, but I won't, and I have morals. But all of us have that we pose that question to ourselves saying, is this right? Should I really do this? I won't get caught, and I'll get my data back for free. That is the question. People are taking them up on it. So much so that they started tracking where they were sending this ransomware to. And what they found was they were sending this all over the world. And they launched an update because these bad guys, they want to make it more user-friendly. And in the update, they actually translated the ransom ask to every single language. So they once they saw it was going on the complete other side of the world, they wanted to make it more user-friendly, and they launched that update. That's what these criminal organizations are doing. These are full-blown companies, if you will, that are dispersing this. Here's another one that I have that is particularly fascinating. This one's a little bit older, and it's called the Fat Boy ransomware. And it's based off of the cost of a Big Mac. And this is a real number that is tracked. It's called the Big Mac Index. And what this is essentially the cost of living. And it's a real number that's tracked based on the real cost of what a McDonald's Big Mac costs in your part of the world and your city. So for example, if you look at London, the cost of a Big Mac might be much more expensive than somewhere that's a much smaller city, even as close as Reading. The costs vary based on where you live. And comparing that to even somewhere else in the world, say in the US, San Francisco, where one of the most expensive cities to live in outside of London, it's just incredibly more expensive to live there compared to somewhere else. So what this particular strain of ransomware does, it adjusts the ask based on where you live. This is the first one that we tracked that was location aware. It knew where the victim was and then could adjust the amount that it asked. And the reason for that is, if you're in, say, a rural area where the cost of living is a little bit less than a major city, these bad guys don't want to ask for too much money in ransom to have you say, hey, that's too much money for me, I'm not going to pay it. Or conversely, they don't want to ask for too little for somebody, say, based in London or based in San Francisco. They don't want to leave money on the table. so that it fluctuates based on where you live. And as I'm watching this, and it's quite fascinating, and we're glued to this, and we're tracking it as it traipses all over the globe, what we found is a few weeks later, it was available on the dark web. It was available in a Russian language forum where now any of us can go in and purchase this and use this on our own. As I mentioned, sending this out and becoming the criminals ourselves. And there are many, many people that have noticed this and saying, yeah, I can do this, and I can do this from the comfort of my home, and just make ill-gotten gains that way. But that's not it. This one took another turn because these bad guys were watching this, and they were watching the rate at which people were purchasing this malware. And they said, hey, we now need to support this, because that's the next step. You design the malware, and then essentially you start selling it, which means you have a product. The next evolution of that is supporting that product. And just a short while later, it popped up on Jabber, an anonymous chat session, that you can now communicate with these bad code developers and say, hey, I need help getting into the healthcare industry. Can you help me break past those firewalls? Or I'm focused in the financial world and I want to go after the banks. Can you help me get past those firewalls? Or maybe it's just a step of you don't even know what you're doing and you need help setting up a Bitcoin account, or you just don't like the color of the ransomware box that pops up. You can now ask for updates to the code or help setting up these accounts, and these bad guys will walk you through step by step how to become one of them. That's what we're seeing out there. So what do we do about it? How do you mitigate these risks? You do it with business continuity. And I won't get too technical, but this is essentially what business continuity is. On the left side of your screen is your computer network, whether that is a virtual network or your physical devices, your servers, your workstations. This is where you work and live and take care of your customers. What you need is some sort of continuity device, virtual or physical, but something on the network that is storing your data locally. And ideally, you want that data stored as near real time as possible, as little as every 5 minutes, depending on what type of device you're backing up. You might go a half hour, you might go an hour, but you want that data locally so that if you need to recover, you can recover quite speedily and very fast. And then you want your business continuity device to also send your data offsite. You need to get your data to a data center somewhere off of your premises. So in the event you do have some sort of disaster, a fire or a flood or something like that, your data is safe, that it's living outside of your walls. But then you also want to take it a step further, and you want to have your data at a secondary location just in case something happens to that primary data center. And this is the beginning steps of a business continuity solution, keeping multiple copies of your data. You definitely want more than one copy of your data if something bad does happen. So start thinking business continuity and not just backing up data, but true business continuity. So what is business continuity and what are all the aspects of it? It's easier for me to start with what is not business continuity. Business continuity is not just having that single cloud-only copy of your data. If your data resides in the data center and something bad happens, you still have to access that data and get that data from the data center. And if your only copy is just living in the cloud, it does take time to transfer that data, to physically access that data. And when you're down, you need to be up as quick as possible. That's business continuity. Not continuity is if it's only living in one spot. A local only copy, obviously, that is not business continuity. And I always include this to a tape backup, magnetic tape. I just want to inform anybody that is still using magnetic tape for backing up their data. Magnetic tape was invented in 1928, and people are still using that to back up their critical data, which is absolutely mind-boggling when you consider how far we have truly come. File-based backup is not business continuity either. That is basically just backing up bits and pieces of your network rather than everything. A true business continuity solution backs up all of the data that lives on the network, not just specific files and folders and partitions. So business continuity is, and this is, I'll warn you, this is an industry buzzword warning, it's a hybrid cloud-based backup. That is just a fancy marketing way of saying we have multiple copies of your data. We have it living on your location on some form of backup device, but then we also have it in multiple data centers. It's an image-based backup, meaning we're backing up everything. We're backing up all of your data, all of your files, your partitions, but also your operating system. Backing up all of everything that's on your device so that if you need to access that device, it is exactly how you're used to using it. It is, it's all of the files, the folders, the applications, even your desktop background, the kids' pictures, everything we're backing up. We also deliver superior recovery time objective and recovery point objective. That is RTO and RPO, and what that is basically the cost of downtime, which we will get to shortly and towards the end of this presentation. But that is how much downtime truly costs your specific network. But this is the rub. This is what makes business continuity what it is. It's eliminating downtime through virtualization. This is true business continuity. So continuity, you get it. You need multiple copies of your data, but how does it really work? What is this virtualization that you're talking about? Instant virtualization is specifically this. You're working, and for whatever reason, you can no longer work, whether it's a natural disaster or, in this case, ransomware. Ransomware shuts down your whole network. What we do is we go to the business continuity device that lives on your network, and we spin up an exact same image of your workstation, of your server, of your network, and get you back up and running as quickly as possible, in as little as 6 seconds. That's how fast we can do this. The benefits of virtualization are quite obvious. We reduce downtime. That is what a business continuity solution does. It helps with your recovery time objective, how long you can be down, and recovery point objective, how far back in time are you going to restore that data. And a true business continuity solution allows you to do this both from a local appliance or from the data center that is hosting your data. So it is all about total data protection and continuity for all of your data. And that's what we need to think about. So think about how much data you have, where that data lives, especially in today's climate where all of us are working from home. Are we saving data at home? Is it saved in different applications? Is it saved in SaaS applications? All of this needs to go into consideration when you're thinking about a true business continuity solution. So let's go back. I mentioned recovery time objective and recovery point objective, RTO and RPO. And here's the easiest way I can describe what this is. So in the middle of your screen, you have your disaster. So you have your natural disaster or your ransomware attack. For some reason, you are not able to access your data. So your RPO is time. Both of these are in sense of time. RPO, recovery point objective, is how far backwards in time are you going to recover your data? So essentially, how much data are you willing to lose? Are you recovering from this morning's copy of the data? Are you recovering from yesterday's copy? Essentially, if it's your backup schedule, your window. If you back up your data twice a day, you're saying I'm willing to lose 12 hours worth of data or up to 12 hours worth of data. Your recovery time objective is forward thinking, and that is the amount of downtime your business can face. And when you think about this, how much downtime can you face where before you start being really concerned if the organization is going to make it? Is it near real time? Do you need 5 minutes of downtime? Is it a few hours? Or is it a couple days? Could you lose access to your network for 2 to 3 days and recover from it and rebuild that data? These are things that you have to think about when you think of the overall scope of downtime, thresholds of where you're at, and then the overall cost of downtime. And that's where we introduced the recovery and downtime cost calculator. There is a website, and Complete IT can work with you on this, where we have developed a calculator to help quantify and understand how much downtime truly costs and quantify the value of that downtime. And I'll walk you through this, but I would encourage any of the clients of Complete IT, reach out to your sales rep and your account executive and ask them, hey, I heard about this downtime calculator. Can we run through this exercise? And all told, this whole exercise can be done in less than 10 minutes. It's fairly quick. And I'll walk you through the overview of using this calculator. And for those of you that are soon to be Complete IT customers, they can walk you through exactly this and get an understanding of where you sit today and how they can help protect. So this calculator is 10 questions. It's about your business, and then it's about the actual storage of the data and your network. And this is available in all different currencies, so you can get it in pounds or euros if you're outside of the UK. And the first step to this is your RPO and RTO. Again, recovery point objective and recovery time objective, and this is time, and it's based in hours. You can even go down to the minute if you'd like, but this is where you think about, okay, well, how long can I be without my data? And how much data can I restore? How much data can I recreate if I do go down? How far back in time am I going? And then we talk about the data itself. How much data is on your network? How often are you currently backing up your data? If you went down today, how long until you can recover your data? You have to call a provider, have somebody come out and restore that data, or remote in and get you virtualized and up and running. What does your recovery process look like today? And then also, where are your backups stored today? Are they stored locally, or are they stored in the cloud? And I will warn you, if it's stored in the cloud only, this calculator takes into account the amount of data you have and the speed at transferring that data. Because data can only transfer at a set amount of speed, a highest rate of speed. So this calculator takes that into account. The more data you have, the longer it's going to take to transfer that data from a cloud location if you don't have a virtualized capability. And then step 3 is about your business itself. How many employees do you have? How many employees are affected by this outage? What is the average annual salary per employee? What is the average annual overhead cost per employee? And we can work with you on that. A lot of people that I walk through this exercise, they may not know the actual annual overhead cost. And there's real easy ways that we can get that, but it's roughly just a little bit less than half of the average annual salary. And that is for the building, for all of the benefits that those employees have, for all of the lights and the rent and everything like that. And then, what is your business's annual revenue? If you go down for a day or two and you're not collecting that revenue, that is lost funds that we need to account for. And then you hit calculate, and it lets you know what your current solution is compared to what a business continuity solution is, and recovery times. Through your current scenario, it would take this amount of hours to process that recovery, versus having a business continuity solution with virtualization capabilities. And you can see the cost difference in the two and the total investment. So it's not just the downtime investment, but you also have to think about the people factor and reputation. If you go down, aside from what this calculator is saying, if you go down, what are your clients thinking about? And how do they view you as the ones that have that data? So for all of this, for a needs assessment, number one most important thing, talk to an expert. And the folks at Complete IT, they are your experts. They can come in and talk about your current environment and how they can help you and help you estimate the downtime of that. If you are a complete IT partner, just reach out to your account executive. They can walk you through this and they can help you. If you're a soon-to-be complete IT partner, reach out to them and ask them for this needs assessment and set up that initial phone call with them. To do all of that, send them a quick email, inquiries@complete-it.co.uk. Now, ultimately, our goal is to keep you protected. And to wrap up, I want to walk through some of the things to stay protected. And I know in today's climate that it can seem like this enormous mountain of work to say that I'm truly secure, but you can do this in steps. And most of you, I'm guessing all of you, are already doing some of these steps right now. The first step is understanding that you are a target. These bad guys don't care what business you're in, how large or how small you are. All they know is that your data is valuable to you. You also want to document policies and procedures. You want to know that if something happens, how is it flowing through your organization and how are you protecting yourself? You need ongoing employee training, and this is something that is not just done once. This is ongoing. It's not something that you can just purchase and say, yeah, we did employee training 2 years ago. The landscape changes often, so it's ongoing training. And again, Complete IT can help you with that. Password management systems. There are safe ways to store your passwords, safe and encrypted and secure ways. And there are plenty of options out there and methods that Complete IT recommends for doing so, definitely outside of the browsers, which most of us, myself included, have used in the past. Saving them in the browser is not the most secure method for storing your passwords. Never leave devices unattended. That's a common knowledge, but still, I'm one of the road warriors for my organization. And I don't know how many times I'm sitting in an airport and I have somebody, a complete stranger, that has to use the washroom, and they say, hey, can you watch my laptop for a minute? I'll be right back. That happens all the time. And this is just another step in doing this. Anytime you step away from your desk, make sure your device is locked. Make sure your device is with you if you're around, if you're in an environment where you don't know anybody. Be careful what you click on. Ultimately, that's what the design of this webinar was, to talk about the risks that are out there and ways that this malware is introduced to the network. And then absolutely, this is a must-have, and I'm guessing all of you guys have this installed, but antivirus and malware protection, it is imperative that you keep this updated. The folks at Complete IT can absolutely help you with the best of breed and how they protect their customers' networks. And then backups. Backup. We need to make sure that we have so many copies of your data that we can restore to any moment in time. It is an absolute must-have. And then the next step, after you've done all of this, it's mobile device policy. It is locking down devices with pins, remotely wiping devices if you lose them. All of this are things to consider. And then security testing. And this is another major aspect that Complete IT can help you with. Testing where you're at today, and testing how bad people can enter the network. If there's any back doors that are left open unbeknownst to the people that are protecting that network, this is where the brilliant minds at Complete IT can come in and help you out. And with all of that, I just want to thank you. I know that times have been quite crazy lately. Just know that you're headed in the right direction. Take all of these security recommendations in steps. You're already doing some of them, and work with the experts at Complete IT, and they will certainly set you in the right direction. Thank you for your time. From Dado on behalf of Complete IT, thank you for joining us today in today's crazy climate of working from home and accessing networks from various locations. I just want to thank you. I know that your days are quite hectic, so thank you for spending time with us this afternoon. I end every presentation that I deliver with my email address. If anybody wants additional information, shoot me a quick email, et@dado.com. But again, for taking that next step, for access to that RTO, RPO calculator, for a needs assessment, send an email to inquiries@complete-it.co.uk. And the experts at Complete IT will be in touch to talk you through how to secure your network and make sure that you're protected. And again, there is a Q&A session, a Q&A feature within this webinar. If anybody has any questions, please feel free. There is no question that is you should shy away from asking. And we do have a couple of questions that have come in. And let me just tackle the latest one that came in. If we move to Microsoft Office 365, is there any need for us to use a Datto device rather than a third-party backup? Also, can we use Datto if we just store some large data archives on site? So a two-part question. The first part of that question is, if you're already using a third-party backup for Office 365, you are absolutely on the right track. And that's my biggest recommendation. There are a number of third-party backups. Complete IT has their preferred backup, so I would absolutely work with the engineers and your account reps at Complete IT, because that is first and foremost. You need to back that up. And I'll even take that a step further for anybody that is not backing up Office 365. If you actually read the license agreement in Office 365, Microsoft actually recommends that you back up that data to someone other than them. And nobody reads those end user license agreements. They're incredibly boring, but they clearly stated in there that you should be backing this up. And just reach out to Complete IT. They have a fantastic method of backing up that Office 365 data. So that's step one. Step two, is there any need to use a Datto device if you're using Office 365? If you're using Office 365, that data it's living in Microsoft's data centers and it's not on-prem. So you're safe there. You wouldn't need it for that. What you would need a business continuity device for is any of the data that does live within your network. So if you're using SaaS applications to access your data and store that data, yes, back that up through the means of that Complete IT would recommend. For anything that is on-prem, anything that's on your servers or your workstations, your laptops or your desktops, that is where you would have a need for a business continuity solution. A couple other questions that are coming in that I will get to. Where does the data live if we are backing up with Datto? That is one of the aspects of Datto is we give you multiple options, and Complete IT can walk you through that. But there are we engineered our solution to live within specific borders. We don't want data leaving different borders. So you have the ability to keep it in the UK. You can also send it to various locations throughout Europe if you wish. And again, the folks at Complete IT can walk you through exactly how that works. Another question that came in, you mentioned that Internet of Things and threats that are out there. I do have a specific example of that, and forgive me for not having a slide on that, but here's an example that I find quite fascinating of how bad guys are using IoT devices. There is an example of a casino that was attacked, and the way that these bad guys accessed the data within the casino was actually through a thermometer in the fish tank, in the aquarium. So they have they outsource the cleaning of and the maintenance of their aquariums throughout the casino, and that company installed internet connected thermometers that are thermostats that could tell them if the temperature of the aquarium was getting too cold or too hot. And through this, it was unprotected, and these bad guys accessed that data through that thermostat, and they were able to download all of their user data. And if you can think about a casino and what kind of user data they have, it's about their high rollers, credit card information, names, date of birth, addresses, where they live. They had all of that. They were able to access that through an internet connected device. And that is the next step, and that is where we're headed as far as security and what to think of. And for you that are attending this webinar, just think about that. how many devices are introduced to your network, whether that is a mobile device, a smartwatch, or even I'm seeing more and more exactly that, thermostats, Nest thermostats that are connected to networks, and the ease of use of setting up those patterns for turning turning things on and off and accessing it remotely. That is what the bad guys are looking at. So that rounds out the questions so far. If anybody else, I do see one more question coming in, hang on. Is the data stored in Datto data centers fully encrypted with no access to any third party? Correct. What we have is this. We take data encryption extremely seriously. And anytime data is transferring, it is fully encrypted. And then you have the ability to encrypt that data on the on-site device as well as within the data center. And no third party has access to that data other than the provider, other than the experts at Complete IT. So I'll walk you through a scenario. If you accidentally lose data, the engineers at Complete IT will log into a portal and transfer that data from either the on-site appliance or from the data center and get that data restored for you. That is what we do daily, and the engineers at Complete IT, they can do that in a matter of seconds. Now, if we need to access and virtualize that data from the data center, yes, it is fully encrypted, and the only ones with keys to that data would be the owners of that data, Complete IT, and you as their customers. You are the ones that tell us, hey, we need to access that data and we need to virtualize it, we need to transfer that. We will not disperse that data to anybody other than who has that key. Excellent question, by the way. Well, that rounds out all of our questions. I want to thank you once again for taking the time out of all of our crazy days lately and working from home and taking care of your customers. We truly appreciate you spending time with Datto and Complete IT. I cannot recommend strongly enough to reach out to these experts at Complete IT. Send them a quick email, inquiries@complete-it.co.uk. Thank you once again. I appreciate your time.